All rise. Vous vous levez. Please be seated. Vous vous asseoir.
Thank you very much. My apologies for the delay. I needed to finalize an opinion in another case. Thank you. Mr. Farr, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask just one question in public session, then I will move on to private session. Mr. Witness, when you testified on Thursday, 4th September, and I'm referring to the transcript at page 77, line 25, to page 78, lines 2, this is what you told the judges. That one of the reasons you gave a false statement to the prosecution, and I quote, was because I have been against Ruto from the beginning, naturally, so that hatred that I had on Ruto also provoked me to give false statement. You recall that, Mr. Witness?
Yes.
Mr. President, may I ask that we go into private session?
Private session.
Mr. President, I will request for the assistance of the court officer.
We're in open session, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, I was requesting for the assistance of the court officer to distribute the binders. Thank you. Now, how are you, Mr. Witness?
I'm fine, Mr. Keegan.
Now, I'll start my cross-examination with what you said in the course of your testimony on the 8th of September 2014 at page 81 to page 84, at which you described your relationship with Mr. Sang. Now, the first question I wish to ask you is whether you know Mr. Sang.
No, I don't know him.
And have you ever listened to any of his programs?
No.
And would you be in a position to recognize his voice if you heard it?
Yes, I can recognize.
Okay, we will come back to that. Now, I want to ask you a little about the history of you being identified for purposes of being a prosecution witness. I am aware that we are in a public session, and so I'll be careful with my questions. I'll request that you do the same in your answers. Could you confirm that it is your testimony that your first encounter with the prosecution was on the 27th of June 2013?
I had said that I don't remember exact date that we started speaking with the OTP.
However, you will recall that you testified that you had a telephone conversation sometime before you went into an interview with them face-to-face, isn't it?
Yes.
And you recall, Mr. Witness, that you met them approximately a month after the telephone conversation, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, could you confirm that in fact in the initial telephone interview that you had with the prosecution, you had not made any mention of Mr. Sang?
I really don't remember that.
Mr. President, I will request to make reference to this. I'll request that we go briefly to our private session.
Private session.
We're in open session, Mr. President.
Now, Mr. Witness, I want us to look at what you said at paragraph 47 of your statement about Mr. Sang. And that the reference is Ken-OTB-0109 at page 026. And this is what you said. Mr. Witness, would you like to have that paragraph pulled out to you first before I read?
You can just read.
Thank you. Now, this is what you said. Tirop.
We are in the open session, you know that? Just
Yes.
warning you.
Yes, Mr. President. It has nothing that is revealing there, Mr. President. I have considered that. Thank you. Mr. Witness, you've mentioned two names. I'll just, out of abundant caution, I'll not say their names. One person and then the second one. Announced the rally through a loudspeaker on a vehicle which traveled around the area. It is possible that the rally was also advertised through KAS FM, but I did not hear. At that stage, I was not really listening to KAS FM anymore because I did not like the provocative statements and incitements against the Kikuyu and the PNU supporters by Mr. Sang. Can you see, you recall saying that, Mr. Witness?
Yes.
Now, the first question I want you to confirm for the record of the court is that, in fact, it is your position that you actually did not hear this meeting being announced through KAS FM.
Yes.
Now, you have proceeded to give an explanation as to why, according to you, you did not hear. You say it is because, and I quote what you said, I did not like the provocative statements and incitements against the Kikuyu and the PNU supporters by Mr. Sang. Mr. Witness, do you still maintain that is the reason why you did not hear the announcement of this rally, if at all it was made?
No.
Could you explain in your own words what explanation there is for the unlikelihood of you having heard if it was advertised at all?
One is that meeting was not there. So saying that it was being advertised by a vehicle was false. So I can confirm that the likelihood of it that it was broadcasted in KAS FM is not there, because that meeting, in fact, was not there.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Your position is that that rally was not there and so could not have been advertised. However, whatever broadcast was being made in December 2007, could you have heard them, Mr. Witness?
No.
And what is the reason, Mr. Witness?
Sorry?
What would be the reason why you would not have heard anything broadcast by KAS FM in the period December 2007, which is the period relevant to that paragraph 47?
I had said earlier that I was a fan of Radio Citizen. So most of the time, when I could tune on my radio, I will go direct to Radio Citizen. I didn't. I was not a fan of KAS FM.
Now, I would like you to be shown the subsequent paragraphs that I want to deal with. Paragraph 187 to paragraph 184. Paragraph 179 to paragraph 184, and those run from Ken-OTP-0109 0109-0047 to Ken-OTP-0109-0048. If the court officer in Nairobi could kindly pull it up.
Mr. Sang, paragraph 179 is being shown to the witness.
Now, Mr. Witness, I'll ask the court officer to take you to page 0048, which reflects paragraph 181 to paragraph 188.
Mr. Sang, the witness can see paragraph 181.
Okay, thank you, but my name is Keegan, not Sang. Now, you can...
Apologies, Mr. Keegan.
That's okay, thank you. Mr. Witness, you can see that at the bottom of that page, we are dealing with page 30 of 32, isn't it? You can see that, Mr. Witness?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Witness, you will agree that the issue of Mr. Sang was captured in the last part of your statement to the prosecution, isn't it? It was the last item you discussed with the prosecution.
Yes.
Now, may I ask you, the issue of Mr. Sang, was it you, how did it come, how did you end up discussing it? Was it the testimony that you had carried with you? Under what circumstances did it come up?
Yes, I had said earlier that when we were discussing that lady, she told me that when presenting your testimony, you should at least mention Mr. Sang, so that it will carry more weight, because it will be now dealing, it will be a case for the two, that is Mr. Ruto and Mr. Sang. So I had to look on my own means of actually mentioning about Mr. Sang.
So the importance of mentioning Mr. Sang is at the instance of an advice given to you by the person who identified you as a potential prosecution witness, isn't it?
Yes.
And in your affidavit, you refer to that relationship between yourself and that lady as being a situation where she recruited you, isn't it?
Exactly.
Now, my question, I would like to still ask you that question more directly and more pointedly, Mr. Witness. At this meeting where you gave this statement, and we've already mentioned the date, which I do not want to mention in public, you were seated with investigators, isn't it?
Yes.
Was the lady present in that meeting?
She wasn't.
So was it yourself who initiated the subject of Mr. Sang, or how did it come up in the course of that interview?
After discussing about Ruto, the investigators asked me what I could say about Mr. Sang. And that is what I told them.
So it is your testimony that the subject of Mr. Sang was at the instance of the investigators that please say something about Mr. Sang.
Yes.
And after asking you to say something about Mr. Sang, did they proceed to ask you, you have approximately, you have done that at paragraph 179 to paragraph 184, approximately 6 paragraphs. Were the details that you have featured in those paragraphs also a result of questions, or it is you who narrated them without the intervention of questions?
It was mostly questions.
Now, Mr. Witness, you have at paragraph 179 to paragraph 181 discussed issues that relate to KAS-FM in the period 2005. You have subsequent to that at paragraph 182 to 184 discussed issues that relate to the period of 2007, and I would like to ask you specific questions about what you say at paragraph 182 to 184. But could you confirm, do you stand by what you said at paragraph 179 to 181 of the statement? Should I ask the question again?
Yes, I was going through.
Is there any particular proposition in it you want to put to him to see if he confirms it?
Mr. Witness, on the court record, and I have particular reference to what you said on the 8th of July 2014 at page 81 to page 83, transcript number 131, you had said that you were not listening to KAS-FM, and you've repeated that this morning, isn't it?
Yes.
You also said that you didn't listen to KAS-FM since its inception, isn't it?
Yes.
And so the things that you've said in paragraph 179 to 181 being things that you allege you heard from KAS-FM, are they things that you personally heard and are aware of?
No.
Mr. President, I'd avoided asking a direct proposition because of your order that we should be circumspect in asking leading questions.
Proceed.
If the transcript to page 69, line 12 could be corrected, I said you didn't listen to KAS-FM. I think the transcript didn't get that. Now, just before I deal with paragraph 182 to 184, I want you to look at paragraph 181. Can you see that, Mr. Witness? I'll request the court officer to assist to you, point out to you paragraph 181.
Yes, I have seen.
Mr. Witness, you have said, I'm interested in the last 4 lines, but let me just, the line starting with Chamke, can you see where you said Chamke is owned by Akikuyu Washira Waruru? As previously mentioned, the Kikuyu were supporting the banana. Can you see that, Mr. Witness?
Yes, I have seen.
Mr. Witness, you said that when you're recording the statement as a statement of fact, isn't it? As something you know personally, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you know whether, in fact, Chamke is owned by one Mr. Washira Waruru?
I don't know the owner of Chamke.
Mr. President, as the witness is considering the answer, could I spell the name of this person who is said to on this station? Washira is Wachira. Waruru is Waruru. Mr. Witness, my question again is whether you know whether in fact Mr. Wachira Waruru owns Chamke FM station.
I cannot confirm now if it is Wachira Waruru or Macharia.
You say you don't know whether it is owned by Mr. Wachira Waruru or Mr.?
Somebody called Macharia who owns Royal Media.
Can you spell the last name, Machari? Is that what you said?
Yes. M-A-C-H-A-R-I-A.
Thank you.
And the spelling of Chamke station is C-H-E-M-G-E-I. Mr. President, I'm sorry. The spelling is C-H-A-M-G-E-I. Now, Mr. Witness, at paragraph 182 to 184, you make two main allegations against Mr. Sang. At paragraph 182, you said this. I will read from the second sentence. After the referendum, Mr. Sang started using KAS-FM for the ODM campaign, especially in 2007. He often raised political issues on his Lene Emet show. He was negative about PNU side. He went as far as listing all district commissioners to cabinet ministers and senior government officials. He was comparing the amount of Kikuyu against other tribes. He noted that since Kibaki was president, only Kikuyu had been Minister of Finance. He was giving the point of view that Kibaki and PNU were promoting ethnicity. You can see that, Mr. Witness.
Yes, I have seen.
So your first allegation against Mr. Sang is that he was holding out PNU negatively as being ethnic, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, the second allegation you make about Mr. Sang, just before we start responding to it, is at paragraph 184, where you say this, and I'm reading the last two lines. He actually alerted people that there was a lorry leaving Eldoret, heading to Kisumu, and gave the number plate. He said that this lorry was carrying fake ballot boxes. I heard that this truck was banned. Can you see that, Mr. Witness?
Yes, I have seen.
Now, just, Mr. President, I request for 5 minutes private session. Then when we come back, I can do public session. Kindly, Mr. President.
Private session.